Welcome to episode 9 of Social Skills is Canceled. This episode is being released in conjunction with Kiss and Make Up Day on August 25th. So I thought this would be a great time to talk about the concept of apologizing. Typically, our kids get inundated with messages about being expected to apologize, being required to apologize. Even if you look up resources and materials on apologizing, it's all about teaching kids when to apologize, how to apologize, why they should apologize. Here's my issue with that. It often turns our kids into over apologizers, which in my opinion is even a more serious issue. So stay tuned. That's what I've got in store for you today. Welcome to the Social Skills is Canceled podcast. I'm Steph, and I'm a recovering social skills teacher. I created Starfish Social Club so I could spend my time teaching neurodivergent kids and teens to be more socially competent, confident, and connected without relying on compliance, punishments, or just expecting my kids to be more normal. The outcome? Happier, healthier relationships with themselves, their peers, and their parents. Welcome to the club. First thing I want to address for our conversation all about apologies is why apologies tend to be really difficult for our kids. So there's several different reasons for that. They may all apply to your kiddo, or just a couple may apply. One of them is that apologies require us to be accountable for ourselves, right? That's the whole basis of an apology, is that we're acknowledging that we said or did something that somebody else feels like we should not have said or done, or maybe even that we feel like we should not have said or done. It's acknowledging that we've done something quote unquote wrong or bad. Nobody likes to admit or acknowledge something like that. Even us as functional adults, we do not like to admit or acknowledge that that's the case. There are plenty of adults in the world who never admit or acknowledge when they've done something that has hurt somebody else's feelings, offended somebody, inconvenienced somebody, caused real pain or damage. There are people in the world who don't ever admit something like that. So it's easy to see how this is difficult for kids, right? Kids admitting or acknowledging that they've done something that has hurt somebody else in some way. It's the biggest reason why it's difficult for our kids to apologize. Is it's basically the same thing as admitting that we were wrong. Another reason kids avoid apologies often is because going along with admitting that you're wrong, much more likely chance that you're going to get in trouble. So if you apologize for something, you're acknowledging what you have said or done, and now you're opening the doorway for getting in trouble for whatever it is you said or did. The alternative is adamantly refusing to admit that you ever said or did it. So that's probably familiar for some of you, that your kiddo refuses to take responsibility for things they said or did. This is why most lies are to get people out of trouble. Not all of them, but most of the time when somebody doesn't tell the truth, it's because they're trying to avoid a consequence. So if your kiddo admits or acknowledges through an apology that they've done this thing, they have opened themselves up to now getting in trouble for having done this thing. Another thing about apologizing is it can be damaging to our self-esteem to the way we perceive ourselves in the world, to the way that we think other people perceive us in the world. It reinforces the concept of being wrong or being bad. Kiddos with ADHD, research has shown, get so much more negative feedback throughout the course of their life than kids who don't have ADHD. So, speaking specifically to ADHD, because that's where the research exists, our ADHD kids are so used to feeling like they're bad or wrong, and apologies just pile onto that. What we're actually more likely to get from our kiddos is over apologizing because they always feel like they've done something bad or wrong. So, here are some of the things that we adults do that actually reinforce apologies being so darn difficult for our kids. One of the things that we do is that we force them, we require them. So, usually, this is out of our own embarrassment or our own shame. If you're in public and your kiddo starts having a meltdown, right, you might require them to apologize to people around them. If they're at home hitting a sibling, you might require them to apologize to their sibling because you want to show the sibling that you can handle it, you're in control, and that that's not okay. So a lot of times us requiring kids to apologize comes from our own sense of guilt or shame over whatever it is that they're doing. When we require apologies, we get half-assed apologies, right? You get sarcastic apologies, you get mumbled apologies. There's also situations where sometimes kids will apologize and then have massive behaviors afterward because of the situation that they found themselves in. It's a no-win situation for them. They're required to apologize. So now sometimes we get this massive behavioral burst afterward because of how crappy they feel for being forced to apologize. Another thing that we adults can do that makes this even more challenging is punishing our kids when they don't apologize or threatening them for not apologizing. If you don't apologize, we're going home. If you don't apologize, I'm taking your phone. If you don't apologize, whatever, XYZ, right? Punishing or threatening our kids for not apologizing is another way that we make apologizing an even bigger issue than it really needs to be. It also is another way we make apologies very disingenuous, right? If you were threatened for not doing something or punished for not doing something, you would be more likely to do it also, just like your kid is. You would be more likely to do it half-assed or sarcastically. Okay. So punishing and threatening might get the job done, but you're not getting the outcome that you're really looking for. You're getting a very manipulated outcome. Another thing that we do that makes this more challenging is not apologizing to them. Maybe we lost our cool and said something that was a little too much. If that happens, do you apologize to your kids? Do you apologize if you accidentally bump into them, or do you turn it into a joke? Do you apologize if you're wrong about something? So, if we are not able to apologize to our kids, that's the model that they see. They see apologizing as something that's to be avoided. I have to say that I apologize to kids at Starfish all the time because it's so important to me to reinforce this concept. I apologize anytime if I bump into somebody or run into somebody. I apologize if I misunderstand something that somebody's saying. I've apologized for being wrong about something before. Now, I made that sound like one time. Anytime I realize I'm wrong about something, I apologize to the kids. I've apologized for not noticing somebody trying to tell me something. So I apologize to the kids anytime I feel like it's appropriate because I really want to reinforce the natural order of apologizing to other people. I really want them to see that it's not that big of a deal and that it's a free exchange back and forth between us. It's not a one-way child to adult situation or child to child situation. It's for all of us. Another challenge is this one's a little bit touchy because it usually has to do with religion. But I have seen kids where I can tell they were raised and brought up to ask other people for forgiveness and to not be able to move on until the other party has forgiven them. We have no control over the choices that someone else makes. So I've seen kids have meltdowns over someone else not forgiving them. So they've chosen to apologize, usually because they think they're expected to. They've chosen to apologize. The other person either doesn't forgive them or just doesn't, moves on, doesn't really acknowledge the apology. And I have had a kid melt down over that before. But Steph, he won't forgive me. He didn't forgive me. He's off playing with somebody else. He doesn't even care about it anymore. He's moved on. So when we require kids to ask for forgiveness, we don't have any control over whether the person on the other side of that apology is going to forgive them or not. It's almost like a setup for our kids. One more thing that we do that can make this process even more difficult is that we stop at the apology. So we require the apology, and then once the apology is given, that's it. That's the end of it. The apology is the least important part of this whole process. That's what I want to talk about next. We actually have a whole lesson that talks about apologizing at Starfish Social Club. It's in our first module, our identity module. So even if you're not a student at Starfish, our identity module is available through our website for people to do on their own with their kiddos. So this is one of the things that we talk about in that first module is the concept of apologizing. For us, apologizing is not required. It's a choice that we make. More important than apologizing is the concept of making it better. I don't care if kids apologize or not. It is their choice. What I do care about is what they do next. How do they make this better? So, for example, one time some kiddos were building a block tower and one of the kids knocked it down. The other kiddo got really upset because he wasn't ready to knock it down. So I stepped in and I said, how can we make this better? And the kiddo who knocked it down said, oh, I can help him rebuild it. And then off they went and rebuilt the tower, and he didn't knock it down again. And then I intervened and said, hey, I wonder if you guys could come up with an agreement on when you're ready to knock it down. That way, nobody feels upset or has their feelings hurt. You both agree on when to knock it down. So just going a little bit further. But this kid didn't apologize for knocking it down. And I don't care that he didn't apologize, because what he did do is so much more important. He came up with his own strategy and helped the other student rebuild the tower. And they came to an agreement that he wouldn't knock it down again unless they talked about it. To me, that's so much more important than him apologizing for it. Our action, right? Actions speak louder than words. That's a classic example of that. It's very true. So we call it making it better. How can we make this better? Sometimes when I ask kids that, how can you make this better? They do apologize. Totally fine. It's their choice if they want to or not. But it also means they're expected to change their behavior. All right. So the example I give the kids in class is if you're kicking somebody under the table, right? Even if it's an accident, you're just shaking your foot and I'm sorry, you apologize. You're expected to quit kicking them under the table, right? You're expected to change your behavior. Otherwise, your apology is pointless. And it makes people pretty annoyed when we apologize for something but we keep doing it, right? Even things like being late. I'm going to use that because I struggle with time management. It does me no good to apologize to somebody for being late and then continue to be late in the future. It makes my apology seem insincere. It makes it seem like I'm just saying sorry to try to get out of being accountable for the fact that I was late if I keep being late. So the apology is not the important part. The change in behavior is what I'm really looking for. And also understanding that we can't control the other person's response. They may be totally fine with our apology. They may be super angry with our apology. They may choose not to accept our apology. They may have moved on and not even care about whether we apologize or not. There's one time several years ago, I actually don't remember what the situation was. I remember somebody was really mad at me and I had apologized. I acknowledged I did something. I don't remember what it was. And I apologized and they kept coming back at me in this one situation, raising their voice at me, talking about whatever I had said or done. And I finally just said, I don't know what else you want from me. I apologize for saying what I said. I won't say it again. I don't know what else you want from me. And when I said that, they stopped. But I have no control over how someone else reacts to me apologizing to them. Sometimes people don't accept apologies, and we all have that right. I have no control over that. This person did not accept my apology. They have the right to not do that. So an apology should not be about the other person. It should be about us being able to take accountability for the fact that we've said or done something that's harmed somebody else. Literally, figuratively, emotionally, verbally, whatever the case may be. It shouldn't be about the other person and their response. It should be about us. In the lesson, we go more into detail about over apologizing because that's more of a challenge for the kiddos. So those of you guys that are in that program, your kiddos have that lesson as well. We make lists of things that would be pretty appropriate to apologize for and things that wouldn't be appropriate to apologize for. Because it's interesting how our kiddos tend to default to just apologizing kind of chronically, even if they get feedback, like if somebody says, hey, can you please move over? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh gosh, you don't have to be sorry for that, right? So even times when our kids just get generic feedback, neutral feedback, they apologize. That's not what I want for our kids, for sure. That's really a gateway to anxiety and to low self-esteem. Every time we apologize, it sends a signal to our brain that we're wrong. Sometimes we need that signal, right? Sometimes it helps us correct our choice that we've made. So we definitely need that signal when it's appropriate. But we don't need that signal all day, every day. And that's what's happening to some of our kids is they are sending themselves that signal all day, every day. And when we require apologies, we are sending them that signal as well. So instead of requiring apologies, let's focus on teaching our kids how they can make something better. My next episode will be for September 1st, which is No Rhyme or Reason Day. So I figured that was a perfect opportunity to talk about some of the things our kids say and do that we think are totally random, but really aren't. There's a reason for everything. So that's what we'll be talking about on September 1st is why does my kid say or do that? I'll see you then. Thank you for joining us. If you aren't already part of our community, you can find us online at www.starfishsocialclub.org, on Facebook at Starfish Social Club SATX, as in San Antonio, Texas. You can also send an email to hello@starfishsocialclub.org, and my amazing right-hand man, Ramiro, will get back to you. Finally, finally, I would love it if you would rate and review us. Not because I need you to like me, that's social awareness, but because feedback helps me grow. And because ratings and reviews help other parents find us as well, which means I get to help more kids. And that's the reputation I'm out to create for myself. I'll see you next time.